special speaker this weekend. Rabbi Hara Person. I'm so excited I get to introduce you. This is nice.
Wait till I get to say something about you.
Ooh, I should be measured then. Rabbi Hara Person is the chief executive of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. Before she became the chief executive, she was the CCAR's chief strategy officer. In that capacity, she oversaw the communications department and served as the publisher of CCAR Press and worked with leadership on overall organizational strategy. Rabbi Person was ordained in 1998 from the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion after graduating summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa from Amherst College, a place we both care very much about, and receiving a Master of Arts in Fine Arts from NYU's International Center of Photography. But before going to the CCAR, Rabbi Person was the editor-in-chief for URJ Books and Music, where she was responsible for the revision of the Torah, a modern commentary, and the publication of many significant projects, including Aleph Isn't Tough, an adult Hebrew series, Meet Kadem, Hebrew for Youth, as well as several award-winning children's books. While at the URJ, she was also the managing editor for the Torah, a women's commentary, which was named the National Jewish Book Award of the year 2008, I believe, right? And before that, she served as the educator at the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue from 1990 to 1996, where she was also the adjunct rabbi. And before that, she taught first grade, where I was in that class. And Hara was the first person to show me that Jewish education and religious school education could not only be fun, but exciting and interesting and engaging, and help you realize there's a whole world out there of Jewish studies and of lifelong Jewish education. When I think about my teachers, she's who I think about. So it is a joy to be able to welcome Rabbi Person to Anshe Emeth. B'vakasha.
That's some intro. Oh, God. Okay, thank you. Okay, hi. Before I get started with what I'm formally going to say, I do need to say a couple of things about your rabbi. Actually, I would say about...
Let me just turn this off real quick.
I should say your rabbis, because I want to start just for 1 second giving tribute, first of all, to Rabbi Harvey Fields, who I think probably some of you knew. I worked very closely with him on a couple of books and just loved him and really thought of him as a teacher and a mentor, and I miss him still because he was very influential for me personally. And Rabbi Bennett Miller, and I was trying to think, like, when did I meet you? But I feel like I've just known you forever. And I mean, what a group of rabbis you have here, because Rabbi Miller, and I'm sure you do know this, but Rabbi Miller is like one of the big guys, like one of the really important rabbis. And we met, I mean, I don't know if we met, but we interacted certainly around your Israel advocacy work. So important. So much passion and love put into that work, and I'm so grateful for everything that you've done. I know you've done a lot here, but what I've really seen is your work on a national level. And boy, I mean, you should just know what impact Rabbi Miller has had. And then you have Rabbi Baisley, the next generation, who you are so lucky to have, Philip. You know that. And, I have so many stories I could tell you. I mean, you know the present day Rabbi Baisley, and you know how amazing he is, and the passion and the love and the heart that he brings to everything he does. I'm going to just take you back just a little bit, and then we'll get into like the formal remarks. But so as Rabbi Baisley said, there we are, the first day of religious school. It's probably 1988. And there's little Philip holding onto his mother's hand because he's just not sure what this is all about and if he wants to stay. But he stayed, and I just fell in love with him. And the amazing thing about that class, I'll just tell you, was in addition to Rabbi Philip in those years, there was this whole group of kids, and each one of them was amazing. And more than that, each set of parents was amazing. And those parents and those kids, that family group, became the backbone of the synagogue for a whole generation. And I have so many memories of Philip's parents. Like, just if there was something that needed to be done, an ark needed to be built, like a portable ark needed to be built, because high holiday services were in a different building in a local church. Well, there was Philip's father, help building, creating that portable ark. And that just tells you a little bit about your rabbi. I could go on and on because I adore not only Rabbi Baisley, but his parents. Just amazing, amazing people. And I think I actually taught your father. Pretty much any time I would teach an adult ed class, including Hebrew, there was Peter Baisley. And that was really, and he was just a gem of a guy. So that was just lovely. And then, I'll be quick, I promise, but Philip also babysat my kids. We think maybe changed their diapers, possibly. Yeah, they probably don't want to talk about that. But Philip was coming over, like, that was fantastic. And when I had my second child, and my first child was a little toddler running around, Philip was going to day school around the corner from where I lived, and he would come over after school and just occupy my daughter so that my son and I, so that I really could nap. And, it was a great setup. And I'm just, one more thing, and then I promise I'll stop. Because this really goes to, I think, so much about who Rabbi Baisley is. One summer, my son was at Camp Eisner, and we had a kind of sad thing in our family. A beloved uncle died. And I had to call my son at camp and tell him, because we didn't want letters getting to him telling, I wanted to be the one to tell him, but I was nervous, here's your kid, hundreds of miles away, who is going to be there to support them, and there was Philip, and he was that loving, comforting presence for my son, who was, I don't know, maybe about 9 or 10 years old, something like that. And I knew that he was going to be okay because Philip was there. And the one thing he really wanted was the newest Harry Potter book. That was going to be the thing that helped him over this. And so Philip went out and bought the book for him. So just a little bit of what a mensch of a guy he is. I'll stop with, lots of stories, but I'm so delighted to be here with you tonight. As we sort of just hinted at, you have an incredible history in this congregation of rabbis who have been intensely involved in putting hope into the world. During Rabbi Harvey Field's tenure here, you began your work as part of a rotating interfaith homeless shelter. And that was well before it was the norm for synagogues to do that work. And I loved learning more that I didn't know about Rabbi Miller's work in creating the Anshe Emeth Community Development Corporation, among other things, running the Central Jersey Diaper Bank. I love that, giving away diapers, clothing. You know this. It was news for me. It was interesting to learn, but I love that. And that's just one of the amazing things that I could say about Rabbi Miller. Starting with your partnership with the Elijah's Promise Food Shelter, there's, as I said, your advocacy on behalf of Israel, working with ARTSA and the Israeli Reform Movement, on behalf of Soviet Jewry. Remember Soviet Jewry, right? That was so much work. And Rabbi Baisley is carrying on that tradition, being part of the creation of Interfaith Rise, helping refugees and immigrants, expanding the congregational relationship with Elijah's Promise, co-chairing RAC New Jersey, and helping ensure the passing of the Fair Chance in Housing Act, hosting iftars in the community, and again, so much more. You know more about this than I do. But none of your rabbis did this work because they were simply good people. They are good people. But they didn't do it for that reason. They didn't do it because they wanted a claim. They did this work because as Reform rabbis, they're called to make the world better and to spread hope. Doing this kind of work to make the world a better place, to improve the lives of our neighbors and our communities, does exactly that. It helps spread hope in what might either be a dark or a hopeless world. And as rabbis, and really as Jews, we have a responsibility to spread hope wherever we can. The times we're living in today are so terribly hopeless at moments. It's such a divided time. People can't agree on truth, on facts, on good and bad, right and wrong. Families are divided, communities are divided, and we're living with such fear and anxiety and stress. Reports keep telling us that mental health across all generations is at an all-time low point in this country. How do we find hope in a time like this? The Hebrew word for hope is tikva. It is, as Rabbi Dr. Michael Marmer, who's a professor at the school that all of us went to, in Jerusalem, points out related to the word tikva is related to the word kav, meaning a line or a cord. It's a strange connection, but a closer look may help us regain a sense of hope. Lines, of course, can divide us, right? Think about the green line, redlining, or even lines in the sand. Lines create binary thinking, where there's my side, my truth, my absolute, and then over there on the other side there's yours, disrupting our ability to speak to each other. Lines on a map have caused countless strife throughout human history. It's the problem with working on my iPad. It blinks. Right? Lines on maps have caused countless strife throughout human history in creating borders that keep us from one another, dividers that block interaction and interfacing intentionally or not. Borders are meant to keep us safe, but they are also there to keep out the other. Just think of all the discourse in this election year about the importance of borders, right? And keeping borders open or closed and the dangers of both options. But lines also enable us to connect, right? So, you're not that far from New York City, right? We have subway lines and here probably you have bus lines, I'm guessing, right? You have commuter rail lines, perfect, thank you. And those lines take us where we want to, I'm such a city girl, I'm sorry, it's my bias. Those kind of lines take us where we want to go, right? To work, to dinner with friends, to a doctor's appointment. And then there are phone lines, right? Which revolutionized the way we could be in touch with each other. Remember phone cords, right? Remember like wrapping it around your arm, lying on the bed and talking, or lying around the corner from where the phone was hanging on the wall, We may no longer be reliant on phone cords in the way we once were, but we're very reliant on the cords, those sort of wrapped up lines of fibers, those cables that are underneath the ground and that cross oceans to keep us connected to our cordless phones and our Wi-Fi and to each other, right? Where would we be without our charging cables that enable us to use all those devices that connect us to each other and to the world? All the cords and lines create webs of connection between people, right? Think about like that expression, let's open up a line of communication, right? Thread, too, is a kind of line that connects. Thread sews fabric together and creates new wholeness out of a multitude of pieces. Threads can fix tears in the fabric, right? Not only literally, but also metaphorically, binding us all together. Rabbi Ayla Samuels is a rabbinic colleague who serves a community in Caesarea, Israel. And it's hard to even comprehend what this year has been like for her, holding both her community and herself together in the face of such tremendous grief and fear. And yet, when asked what it is like to be a rabbi in Israel right now, she speaks of the necessity of what she calls avodat hatikva, the work of hope, the imperative to provide hope where none seems to exist. One measure of hope may be found in remembering that idea of the kav, the thread, the cord, the line, even the cable that binds us all together, right? Whether we even want to be or not, it unites us in a shared humanity. And that is one way we can find tikva, we can find hope, by hanging onto that cord, and in so doing, allowing it to pull us out of despair and into possibility. When we can see the threads that bind us to each other, right, to those who are like us, those who are not like us, to those in our communities, those who we might see as other, when we can understand that our fate and our future is bound up in the fates and the futures of those not ourselves, we can find tikva, hope, right? The place where we are sewn together as humanity is a seam that pulls us into relationship with each other. It is a place of generativity and creation, and that is a place where hope can grow. Rabbi Amcha Lau-Levi teaches that Jewish history is replete with periods of contraction and periods of expansion. And right now, it does feel like we're in a period of contraction or scarcity, right? It's not a great time in many ways to be a Jew. It's a time of sorrow and grief, shame and anger, more questions than answers. But if we can remember that these periods come and go, perhaps we can derive hope from the idea that we have been through hard times and we have been through great divisions in our past. We have suffered terrible leadership before. We have been hated and reviled from outside and have argued vociferously with each other from within. And looking at the long arc of Jewish history, we have withstood those challenges and we have survived. And perhaps that idea of resilience is a cord, a cub that can pull us toward hope for the future. Now, I wanted to say one thing more about the synagogue and about the future, and that is Rabbi Lautenberg, who is your rabbi and who was my intern when she was a rabbinic student, and represents the future, the next generation, the people who are going to bring the new ideas, the sparks of creativity, and with all of that, bring the hope. You have a career yet to be made, but you're going to do great things for this community and for the Jewish world, building on the history, Rabbi Miller, Rabbi Beasley. Throughout Jewish history, reform has been aspired to be that one strand of that cub, that rope that gives us hope in a complicated, often broken world. By emphasizing the twin values of community and social justice, Reform Judaism has taught us that we are all connected. And that is what impacts one of us impacts all of us. Because Reform Judaism has from its start lived with one foot in the Jewish world and one foot in the world of modernity. It is uniquely positioned to grapple with the challenges of being a Jew in the modern world. In 1885, the first synthesis of American Reform thought, a group of Reform rabbis wrote in what came to be known as the Pittsburgh Platform, if you've heard of that. Here's what they wrote. In full accordance with the spirit of the Mosaic legislation, which strives to regulate the relations between rich and poor, we deem it our duty to participate in the great task of modern times, to solve on the basis of justice and righteousness the problems presented by the contrasts and evils of the present organization of society. And when they say Mosaic, they don't mean this, right? They mean of Moses. They mean Jewish, okay? That is, it was understood that a basic tenet of Reform Judaism as it was developing in America was to use Jewish values in service of a greater social good, an idea that is still alive and well in the Reform Judaism of today. In 1999, in what came to be known as the Pittsburgh Principles, we went back to Pittsburgh, right, 115 years later. They wrote the following. We affirm that every human being is created b'tselem Elohim, right, in the image of God, and that therefore every human life is sacred. We regard with reverence all of God's creation and recognize our human responsibility for its preservation and protection. On October 7th, Israeli entrepreneur turned peace activist Maoz Inon lost both his parents, who were residents of Nativ HaAsara, a moshav located in the envelope area near the Gaza border. After sitting Shiva, Inon decided that he was not going to seek revenge, but rather he was going to respond with even more urgency to make peace. He said in an interview, "Hope is not a feeling I wait for. I make hope. Hope is a communal endeavor, something we create together. That is, hope is not something we have. Hope is something we do. That powerful reframing of hope is so resonant with our Reformed Jewish history of taking action against injustice. Like your rabbis here at the synagogue, and I really should say I represent the rabbis, but also your cantors, because Jewish life wouldn't exist without your cantors, and the hope and the music and the life and the creativity that they also bring into our communities. And that's so important, and thank you for really inspiring me tonight and being part of our present and our future. We don't just hope for a better future, we have to actively go out and pursue it. As Reformed Jews, we find a measure of hope by acknowledging that we are all connected by that kav, right? That line, that cord, that thread, that cable that unites us. And when we can see that, when we can feel that connection to each other, and we can act on that sense of shared humanity, we can find hope, we can find inspiration, we can find courage, we can find tikva. And I pray that we all do. We have hard times that we're living in right now. I have a feeling we have hard times ahead of us. But we have to find those cords that pull us out of despair into action. And I pray that it will be so for all of us. Thank you.